Let's talk about the lightning-fast, pompous chaos god creating space elves in the grim darkness of the far future. The Eldar, or the Aeldari, are an ancient species of human-looking space aliens that have a long and storied history, with them having a seemingly immortal empire that was destroyed by their own hubris and excess, right after they mastered life and death too, with their people fracturing into multiple different groups. They are deadly fast, bioengineered supremacists that believe they are the true rulers of the galaxy. This video is for my own nefarious purposes. I'm telling you now, I have plans that I cannot share with you right now, because the haters will sabotage me. Let's just say that we covered enough of the heavy hitters of a certain event that changed the path humanity and the universe was going down since the Horus Heresy, and we're wrapping up the main factions we missed in the next few weeks. So to see how this all pans out, make sure to like and subscribe, as well as hitting the bell icon to get notified whenever I post a video. In the time of the Old Ones, the Necrontyr got really mad when the amphibian-like Old Ones said that they could, but wouldn't, help the Necrontyr, with their species-wide affliction that was basically turbo cancer. So the Necrontyr went and traded their souls to become lean, mean, green robot skeletons with lasers. That explanation of Necron biotransference is pretty hasty, but only because this video isn't about them. It's about a race of war machines that the Old Ones made to try to combat their new metal automatons, the Necrons. Enter the Eldar. The Eldar outwardly look very similar to humans, but physiologically they are built for war and the manipulation of the warp. They stand taller than most humans and are leaner with more spindly limbs and handsome faces, with skin that often has light tones and piercing cat-like eyes. Oh, and I almost forgot, they have these big old ears. Some people make fun of them for it. That's me, don't do that. Orcs have them too, and I think they look beautiful on both. They live for a crazy amount of time, have crazy amounts of speed and dexterity, and can't really get sick. They do claim to perceive the universe at a grander scale, though, mainly because of their history of having to deal with a bunch of other races, as well as being able to feel sensations and emotions far deeper than a normal human can. If that doesn't interest you, they can also blow up your brain with their brain. And that's not like a special few of them. All Eldar are potent psychers. Because of things like Wraithbone, which is warp energy given solid form, and Spirit Stones, they were practically immortal, with them being able to store their souls in machines, which worked exceedingly well when they had to fight against the Necrons. But they did have some issues once all the Necron went to sleep and the Eldari got some alone time. The Eldar act like a bunch of self-important, mightier-than-thou conquerors that believed the galaxy was theirs. They were spread across the stars and were interested and got into a lot of things with their curious, grubby little hands. But they're aliens, fast, and even more dexterous. From what I can tell, we don't really know much about Eldar's settlements on planets, at least from what I could find, making them a little unknowable and spooky, compared to how much we know about orc scrap towns or imperial hive cities. They also have some gods, which are close to mythological pantheons. Some are alive, but most were destroyed in the fall of the Eldar race. Even though the Eldar had a seemingly immortal empire, the Eldar had to go and mess it up. This happened because the Eldar, being ultra-sensitive to all types of motion, and also being immortal, made it so they got bored pretty darn easily. So they started to do some of the most depraved, perverted things they could possibly think about, but in a high-class fashion to show how perfect they were. If you've seen Eyes Wide Shut, think of that, but in Warhammer 40k. But because they're all psychers, they had a connection to the warp that was deep, and may have accidentally, quite possibly, made the Prince of Pleasure themselves Slannesh. Born from all that emotion, the Chaos God sprang forth and soul-sucked a large majority of the Eldar population, leaving only some survivors. Maybe if they subscribed to me instead of giving in to carnal desires, they would still be in tip-top shape. During Slannesh's birth, the Chaos God also called dibs on Eldar souls for all eternity, with them being eaten by She Who Thirsts whenever they die, with there only being a possibility of saving your soul with Spirit Stones that would leave the Eldar as memories and Wraithbone as knowledge. This caused the remaining Eldar survivors to fracture into many different factions because of how they embraced or turned away from their ways. Don't worry, most of them are still horribly xenophobic. Craftworld Eldar are those who realize being a bunch of people who commit atrocities in the name of getting a kick out of it is a pretty bad deal. This only happened a little bit before the birth of Slannesh, with them fleeing the core worlds in giant ships called craft worlds, with them surviving the ruin of their race with their silly little mystical technology. They strive to hone their minds and only pursue goals that will help their culture to continue its attempt at reclaiming the galaxy. and to make sure to never fall to temptations or Slannesh ever again. Each craft world that survived has a different culture that are much like the worlds of the Greater Imperium. Alatok culture are one of the most elitist because of how they control their citizens, with everybody having to exercise a lot of temperance. The Biel Tan try to bring back the full might of the peak of the Eldar Empire, with military service being required, and this craft world has the strongest armies and most elite troops. The Uluthwe live pretty close to the Eye of Terror, and have the most hardened fighting force with potent psychers. This happens because of their vicinity to the Eye of Terror and the Warp, making it so they have an even stronger connection to it. And the Soundham have been isolated and prideful, leading them to war with the other Eldar because, these suckers think it's a great idea to get rid of more of their people. The Exodites are the Eldar that fled homeworlds and craft worlds to be free from Slannesh by having their own souls sent to a world they inhabited. They are a lot more minimalist and similar to fantasy elves, like the snake bikes for orcs acting like fantasy orcs in 40k. They're also Corsairs, which are basically pirates who are mercenaries and plunder. Sometimes they help out craft worlds, for the most part they're rogues. The Corsairs once saved the craft world of Ynnan with the help of the Corsair prince to fight off a Tyranid fleet. So they're just a bunch of swashbucklers with a heart of gold. Shout out to silly space pirates. You deserve the best and are loved. The Drakari are the Eldar that continue to do all the things that the pleasure cults did even after the birth of Slannesh. They figured that they were already too far gone and that the only way forward is to fall deeper into the depths of depravity by doing more and more horrible things. When they die, their souls get eaten by Slannesh, guaranteed every time. But at least they have fun torturing people and turning them into trophies. Right? That's fine. I'm just kidding, these guys are freaks. Stay away from them. They're bad influences. The Harlequins are the custodians of the Black Library. Not the golden test tube babies the Emperor made, but instead just people who protect and maintain an area. The Black Library holds the most amount of knowledge about chaos and Eldar mythology, with the Harlequins themselves being equal parts skilled combatants and performers. They believe that the universe is one big stage, and want to appease their own Eldar god, Kegorach, the Laughing God. The Ynnari are a death cult that are fully focused on destroying Slannesh. They believe that the soul can be reborn and remade, with all their energy going towards making their own death god, a being who embodies Death Manifest, that could single-handedly destroy Slannesh. They travel across the galaxy and grow in number, with more and more joining their cause, in an attempt to make death and rebirth an ace up their sleeve. More selfish Eldar steer away from them, with them being a bit too dangerous. Them even teaming up with humanity to further their goals, which isn't unlike Eldar, but it happens a little too often with the Ynnari, making them untrustworthy. The Webway is a series of secluded tunnels within the warp that make it so the Eldar can go, for the most part, safely through the warp with relative ease. The Drakari inhabit the dark city of Camera, while the Harlequins live in the Black Library, which all are in the Webway, with it being a very secret and well-guarded thing. The Emperor of Mankind tried to make something very similar to the Webway, and died because of it. The Boring Company is pretty much trying to do the same thing, but with the underground of LA, so if they do it, just watch out for demons leaking into the tunnels. The Eldar wage war very sneakily, doing things like assassinations. In a perfect world, the Eldar hope to do everything in secrecy. They move lightning fast and use their psychic abilities when their plans fall through. The Eldar use melee weapons like powers and chainswords, as well as lasers and shurikens, with there being even larger versions of these weapons on vehicles and titans, as well as using melta weapons. The shurikens are sharp, star, or circular shaped, them being made out of crystal, with it being able to get through a sizable portion of thick metal. Imagine if 100 sharp Xbox 360 discs were fired at you, spinning and slicing at the speed of sound, ripping through you. Youch. That's gotta hurt. Yvraine is the emissary of the Eldar god of death and rebirth, and the leader of the Ynnan. Yvraine has done a little bit of everything when it comes to being an Eldar, being born on a craft world, being a dancer for the Harlequins, and a Corsair, and finally a gladiator in Camera, where they died, but they lived and got resurrected by the awakening of Ynnan. Ever since then, the Ynnari have been on a path of uniting the Eldar under the singular goal of destroying Slannesh. Yvraine gaining followers towards her cause, and she's pretty cool, quite possibly the first woman we've talked about. Shh, it's okay, won't hurt you. Well, that's besides the gender fluid characters like the Demonettes or Slannesh. So good job. You get it, girl. On tabletop, the Craft World Eldar have a lot of psychic abilities and damage, often out-damaging most armies, but being blast cannons. Craft World Eldar are often the baseline for how Eldar should play in general. The Drakari are fast-moving and quite fragile, but exceed in melee combat compared to shooting. with them having some particularly tanky units that are hard to kill, like Homunculi. The Harlequins, again, are great at moving, and use lots of vehicles and troop transports while staying close range with pistols and melee, with them being easy to kill but having a lot of great stratagems. And finally, the Ynnari are a combination of all three, losing some of the perks of individual factions along the way, but being able to have a much more diverse troop list. That's all I got for right now, and I admittedly knew only the basics about the Eldar before making this video. I'm not a big fan of elves in general, but the named characters are pretty awesome, especially the Pirate Prince and Yvraine, which are my personal favorites. I think the Harlequin are pretty awesome too. What do you guys think of the Eldar? Do you have anything about the Eldar you want to tell me? Or do you have a video request? Make sure to tell me in the comments down below. Till next video, fellas!